Hey everyone, before we dive into this absolute mess unfolding in Cleveland, I need your help. We're pushing hard to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, and every single subscription gets us closer. If you're enjoying the content and want to see more deep dives into NFL chaos, hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 2 seconds and it means everything to this channel. Now, let's get into the madness that is the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. Something is seriously wrong in Cleveland right now, like genuinely broken. The Browns have a quarterback controversy that shouldn't even exist, but here we are, living through another chapter of Cleveland football drama. Dillon Gabriel is starting, Shedeur Sanders is sitting, and according to Mcaffe, there's way more to this story than anyone is admitting publicly. The decision isn't about talent, it's not about performance, it's about something else entirely. And when Mcaffe dropped that bomb, the entire NFL world stopped and paid attention, because this is the kind of dysfunction that defines franchises for years. Let's be real about what we saw from Dillon Gabriel in his debut against Minnesota. The stats look decent on paper: 19 completions on 33 attempts, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. For a first start, that's not terrible, but dig deeper and you see the real story. He was 3 for 10 on passes that traveled 10 or more yards downfield. 3 for 10. That's not being conservative, that's being terrified. His QBR was 38. For context, that's barely functional quarterback play. He threw short, safe, predictable passes all game long. The Vikings defense, which came in as a top 10 unit, didn't have to respect anything downfield because Gabriel simply wasn't attempting those throws. Now look, I'm not saying Gabriel played horribly. He didn't turn the ball over, which matters. He managed the game, kept the Browns competitive until Carson Wentz decided to be a hero in the final minutes. But managing the game isn't what Cleveland needs right now. They need someone who can elevate the game, who can make defenses actually worry about getting beat deep, who brings energy and unpredictability to an offense that's been stale for years. Gabriel played like a career backup, trying not to mess up, and that's exactly the problem because the Browns don't have a proven starter to come back to. This is it. This is the guy they chose. Mcaffe didn't just question the decision, he exposed it. He looked into the camera with that knowing smirk and basically said the quiet part out loud. This wasn't a football decision based purely on merit. There were other factors at play: politics within the building, coaching staff disagreements, front office preferences clashing with what the locker room actually wanted. Mcaffe has sources, good ones, and when he speaks on something like this with that level of confidence, you better believe there's truth behind it. He wasn't speculating, he was reporting something real, something that people inside the Browns organization don't want public. Think about what that means. The Browns coaching staff wasn't unanimous on this decision. Kevin Stefanski wanted predictability and structure. He looked at Dillon Gabriel and saw a quarterback who would execute the game plan without improvising, without creating chaos, without forcing the coaching staff to adapt on the fly. That's what Stefanski values: control and precision. But apparently multiple assistant coaches saw something different in Shedeur Sanders. They saw electricity, confidence, the kind of natural playmaking ability that can't be taught, the kind of player who makes everyone around him better just by existing on the field. Shedeur Sanders isn't some unknown commodity either. This is Deion Sanders' son, a guy who played at Colorado under the brightest spotlight college football has seen in years. He handled that pressure, handled the media circus, handled opposing defenses trying to prove a point every single week. He's been groomed for this moment his entire life. His father taught him how to handle pressure, how to perform when everyone's watching, how to be the guy when the game is on the line. Those intangibles matter in the NFL, maybe more than anything else. But Stefanski chose safe over spectacular. He chose the guy who wouldn't make waves over the guy who could create them. And Cleveland fans, they know what safe looks like. They've lived through years of safe quarterback play. They've watched their team go 6-11 playing it safe. They've seen coaches get fired for being too conservative. Safe doesn't win in Cleveland. Safe doesn't even compete in the AFC North, where you've got Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and whatever version of chaos Pittsburgh is rolling out each week. You need edge, you need risk, you need a quarterback who isn't afraid to lose if it means giving your team a chance to win big. The locker room reportedly feels split right now. Not openly divided, but there's tension. Some players bought into the Gabriel plan because they trust the coaching staff. Others are watching Shedeur in practice, seeing what he can do, and wondering why the better player isn't getting the opportunity. That's toxic. That's the kind of environment that destroys teams before the season even starts. Veterans talk, young players pick sides, and suddenly you don't have a unified locker room anymore. You have factions, and factions lose football games. Mcafee's revelation changed everything because it validated what fans were already feeling. Something was off about this decision from the jump. When the Browns drafted both Gabriel and Sanders, everyone assumed there would be a real competition. Training camp, preseason games, evaluation based on performance. But according to Mcafee's sources, the competition was skewed from the beginning. Stefanski already knew who he wanted. Gabriel got first-team reps early, got more opportunities with the starting offense, built chemistry with the top receivers, while Shedeur worked with backups. By the time anyone outside the building started paying attention, the decision was already made. That's not fair evaluation, that's predetermined outcome disguised as competition. And when Mcafee exposed that, Browns fans lost their minds because they've seen this movie before. They watched the organization mishandle Baker Mayfield. They watched them stick with guys too long, abandon guys too quickly, make decisions based on everything except what was actually happening on the field. This felt like history repeating itself. Another talented young quarterback getting buried because the coaching staff was uncomfortable with his style. Here's what drives Browns fans crazy about this whole situation. Their defense is legitimately good. Myles Garrett is a monster. Their secondary can cover. Their front seven pressures quarterbacks and stops the run. This is a team that could compete right now if the offense just gave them something to work with. But instead, they're watching their quarterback dink and dunk his way through games, hoping Quentin Judkins can run for enough yards to keep drives alive, praying their defense holds every single week. That's not sustainable. Eventually, your defense breaks when the offense can't stay on the field, can't score points, can't give them any breathing room. Dillon Gabriel's height gets brought up constantly and honestly. It's a fair concern. He's listed at 5'11 and a quarter, which probably means he's actually shorter. In the NFL, that matters. Passing lanes get congested. Defensive linemen get their hands up. Throwing over the middle becomes a challenge. Now, we've seen undersized quarterbacks succeed. Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. But those guys had elite processing speed, incredible accuracy, and escapability that made up for their lack of height. Gabriel doesn't have that same dynamic ability. He's more pocket passer than improviser, and when you're short and stuck in the pocket, life gets difficult fast. Compare that to Shedeur Sanders, who isn't huge either, but plays bigger than his size. He has that confidence that makes defenses respect him differently. He'll stand in the pocket and deliver throws knowing he's about to get hit. He'll scramble when necessary, but doesn't panic. His arm talent is obvious. He can make every throw required in an NFL offense. So why is he sitting? According to Mcafee, it's because Stefanski doesn't trust that confidence yet. He sees it as recklessness rather than courage. He'd rather have the guy who checks down than the guy who might force a throw trying to win the game. But football isn't played in a laboratory. It's not about eliminating all risk. Sometimes you need a quarterback who will take a chance, who believes he can fit that ball into a tight window, who trusts his arm even when the analytics say to punt. Joe Flacco showed that exact tendency when he was in Cleveland a couple years back. Sometimes it worked brilliantly. Sometimes he threw terrible interceptions. But at least the offense had a pulse. At least defenses had to respect the possibility of getting beat deep. With Gabriel right now, defenses are loading the box, daring him to throw it, and he's not taking that dare. Mcafee's comments about the front office adds another layer to this disaster. Apparently, ownership was intrigued by the idea of a Sanders era in Cleveland. The marketing potential alone would have been massive. Deion's son playing in the NFL, bringing that primetime energy to a starving fan base desperate for excitement. Jersey sales, ticket sales, media attention, all of that goes through the roof if Shedeur becomes the guy. But Stefanski operates differently. He doesn't care about marketing. He cares about execution, and in his mind, Gabriel executes the system better right now. That disconnect between ownership and coaching is dangerous. It creates pressure, undermines authority, makes players question whether decisions are being made for football reasons or business reasons. And once that doubt creeps in, it spreads fast. Players start wondering if they're part of the plan or just pawns in some larger strategy they don't understand. Chemistry breaks down, trust erodes, and suddenly you're looking at a lost season before October even arrives. The third down numbers from that Vikings game tell the real story. Cleveland went 0 for 4 on third downs in the fourth quarter, 0 for 4 when the game was on the line and they needed to extend drives. That's not bad luck. That's not play calling. That's a quarterback playing scared, playing not to lose instead of playing to win. On at least one of those third downs, there was an opportunity to take a shot, to try and make something happen, to trust your arm and your receiver to execute. Gabriel didn't take it. He checked down, stayed safe, and the drive died. Now imagine Shedeur Sanders in that same situation, based on everything we know about him, based on his college tape, based on how he was raised by Deion. He's taking that shot. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but at least there's a chance. At least the defense has to respect the aggression. That's what Cleveland needs. They need someone who will try to win the game, not just avoid losing it. There's a massive difference between those two approaches, and right now they have the wrong approach under center. Mcaffe doubled down the next day, which tells you everything you need to know about his confidence in the information. He doesn't just throw stuff out there to create content. When he commits to a story like this, when he puts his reputation behind it, there's substance. He basically confirmed that the Browns are operating with competing philosophies right now. Some people in that building want to develop Shedeur slowly, protect him, let him learn without the pressure of starting. Others think that's a waste of time, that you learn fastest by playing, and that the team is good enough right now to compete if they just had better quarterback play. That philosophical divide is killing them. You can't develop a young quarterback properly when half the building wants him on the field and half wants him on the bench. You can't build an offense when there's no consensus on who should be running it. You can't create chemistry when players don't know who their quarterback will be 3 weeks from now. The Browns are trying to have it both ways, keeping Gabriel as the safe option while still pretending Shedeur is part of the plan, and it's satisfying nobody. The comparison to the Baker Mayfield situation is impossible to ignore. Remember when Tyrod Taylor was the starter, then got hurt, and Baker came in and immediately changed the entire energy of that team? Cleveland went from lifeless to electric in one game. The city rallied behind Baker because he brought something they hadn't seen in years, genuine swagger and confidence at the quarterback position. Now they're watching the reverse happen. They have a guy with swagger sitting on the bench while a game manager takes snaps, and they're being told to trust the process. Browns fans don't trust processes anymore. They've been told to trust processes for 2 decades, and it's led to nothing but disappointment. They want results. They want entertainment. They want a quarterback who makes Sunday exciting instead of stressful. Gabriel might be technically sound, might understand the playbook perfectly, might never make a catastrophic mistake, but he's not exciting. He's not the guy who makes you rush home to watch the game. And in a city that's been starved of quarterback play for this long, that matters. Week 2 of preseason apparently showed more cracks. Gabriel struggled, didn't look comfortable, and suddenly the Gabriel versus Shedeur debate intensified to levels the coaching staff couldn't ignore anymore. Practice reps started shifting. Shedeur got more time with the first team. The offense looked different, more energized, more willing to attack downfield. Players started responding differently. You could see it in body language, in effort, in execution. The team wanted Shedeur on the field, even if Stefanski wasn't ready to admit it publicly. And that's when things got really interesting, because the Browns tried to control the narrative but couldn't. Too many leaks, too many anonymous sources, too much smoke for there not to be fire. McAfee's initial report opened the floodgates. Suddenly everyone with a connection to the Browns organization was talking, confirming details, adding context, painting a picture of a franchise once again torn between doing what's comfortable and doing what's right. Stefanski is in a tough spot now. If he sticks with Gabriel and the team struggles, he looks stubborn and out of touch. If he switches to Shedeur and it doesn't work immediately, he looks indecisive and reactive. There's no clean path forward, which is exactly the kind of situation that gets coaches fired. The margin for error in Cleveland is non-existent. The fans are done being patient. The front office is feeling pressure. And the roster, the actual players who have to go out there and perform, they want to win now. This situation is bigger than just quarterback evaluation. It's about organizational philosophy. It's about whether the Browns are willing to take risks, or if they're going to keep playing it safe and finishing 8-9 every year. It's about whether they trust their talent, or if they're going to keep coaching scared. And most importantly, it's about whether they're actually committed to building something special, or if they're content just being competitive enough to avoid total embarrassment. Pat McAfee exposed all of that with one segment on his show. He pulled back the curtain and showed everyone what's really happening in Cleveland, and it's not pretty. It's politics, it's disagreement, it's coaches protecting their jobs instead of empowering their best players. It's everything that's been wrong with this franchise for years, just in a new uniform with new faces making the same old mistakes. So where does this leave Cleveland, with a quarterback situation that should have been resolved in training camp but instead has become the defining storyline of their season before it even starts? With a fan base that's frustrated, divided, and desperate for someone to just make a decision and stick with it. With a coaching staff that's clearly not on the same page. And with a talented roster that's being wasted while everyone figures out who should be throwing them the football. Dillon Gabriel might be a perfectly fine quarterback. He might have a solid career as a backup, might even start games and not embarrass himself. But he's not the answer in Cleveland, not when there's a guy sitting right there on the bench who brings everything the Browns actually need. Energy, confidence, playmaking ability, the willingness to take chances. Shedeur Sanders might not be perfect either. He might throw interceptions, might make rookie mistakes, might struggle early, but at least he'd give Cleveland something to believe in. At least he'd make the games worth watching. At least he'd inject some life into an organization that's been dead inside for way too long. And that's what Pat McAfee really revealed. Not just that the Browns made the wrong decision at quarterback, but that they're still operating like a franchise afraid of its own shadow, still choosing comfort over courage, still playing not to lose instead of playing to win, still wondering why nothing ever changes. Until that changes, until someone in that building has the guts to take a real chance, Cleveland is going to keep being Cleveland. Talented, frustrated, and perpetually one decision away from finally getting it right.